Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis, and happy Tuesday. Um, Hang on one sec. I didn't treat you guys to be open, so we'll get it here now. Awesome. And welcome to Chalk Talk, everybody. I am your host, Kim Davis. Today is Tuesday, August the 20th. We are, man, can you believe it's already August? We're more than midway through August. That means we're moving towards the end of 24. But here's what it also means. We're a few weeks from the start of regular season in the NFL. College football kicks off Labor Day weekend. Um, a little more, about a month and 10 days, the Houston Rockets will enter training camp. The Houston Astros are just killing it, right? The Astros have won 11 of their last 12 games. They have a 5-game lead over the Mariners for first place in the American League West. And listen, it's a great time to be a Houston sports fan if that is in fact what you are. Texas Southern University is working. Rice is working. Prairie View is working. I imagine the people at U of H are working because it just makes sense that they would be. But so much to talk about. Shout out to Stan Norfleet. I was on his show earlier today over at Sports Radio 790. Next up, that was super cool. I always appreciate it when Stan invites me on. It's great when other people share their platforms with you. So thank you for that, Stan. I'll be on tonight on The Factor with Isaiah Carey. He wants to talk a little football in this upcoming season. So I'll be doing that with Isaiah Carey tonight. And we'll also be headed over to cover the Houston Astros game. So a lot to get to. We're going to talk Houston Texans. I'm super excited about our guest today. It is DJ Bien-Aimie. He is the beat writer for ESPN.com, the Texans beat writer for ESPN.com. It'll be his first time on Chalk Talk. He's going to join us and talk about the Texans, who's on the bubble, what he's thinking about, what's trending in terms of what he expects, who he expects to be on this roster. We won't go through the entire roster, but we'll talk a little bit about that and just what he's seen through training camp, the Hall of Fame game, and the first 2 preseason games. We'll get through all of that. But first, we have got to start with those red-hot Houston Astros. The Astros won again at home last night. As I mentioned, that makes 11 wins in 12 games for the Astros. I think it's fair to say that since they were 12-24 earlier in the season and people were wringing their hands and just like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, understandably, right? That was a rough start for this Astros team. They've been one of the best teams in baseball. You know, they had the stretch in June where they clearly were the best team in baseball in June. And then they come back and there was July and now we're in August. Yainer Diaz had a walk-off home run last night to give them the win over the Red Sox. They pretty much own the Red Sox. I've got to go back and look, but I think that might be 7 straight wins over the Boston Red Sox. At any rate, the Astros are, they're playing well at the right time. And there's still some pieces that aren't back yet. Justin Verlander, who we expect could be back in the rotation in the lineup soon, he still remains out. Kyle Tucker is still out. He's been out since June the 3rd. He was in a cage yesterday, but he is not back yet. We have gotten word that Luis Garcia is shut down for the year. He will not make it back this year. We found out a couple weeks ago about Lance McCullers, but then there are some others to talk about, right? Yusei Kikuchi, who the Astros went out and traded for right before the deadline. And there was a lot of, again, hand wringing and hair pulling out and concern about, did the Astros give up too much? I always felt like they did not. On paper, you might say, well, they gave up all of these players and these prospects. They needed pitching. They got pitching. And he has been nothing short of sensational. He's been really good. Let me say that. He was the pitching help they needed when they made that deal 2 days before the trade deadline with the Toronto Blue Jays. And I know some people were upset about Joey Loperfido. I liked Joey as well, but it seems as though the Astros weren't really sold that he was going to be the prospect right now. Anyway, I'm not going to go back through who all was in the trade, but what I will say is Kikuchi has been good. He was back in last night. He was good again last night. The Astros had 4 fielding errors in last night's game, and they won. I don't recall ever covering a game or following the team and remembering when they had 4 errors in one game. There are a lot of games every season, and perhaps, I could have missed it. I think that would have stood out. I think it would have stood out if, in fact, the Astros had 4 errors, especially all on the left side of the infield. But the fact that they just had 4 errors, they had 4 errors in last night's game, and they still won it. Kikuchi kept his composure. He kept going out and doing what he needed to do and gave him a solid outing. So the Astros, again, let me just tell you their exact record. They are 5 games ahead of the Mariners in the AL West race. Okay, let me pull this up. And they've won 11 of 12. They're playing the Boston Red Sox. Game 2 is tonight. Tomorrow is getaway day. They'll play an afternoon game tomorrow on game 3. And so the Astros are 68 and 56. They have won 9 of the last 10, 11 of the last 12. If the playoffs started today, they would be behind the Yankees, Cleveland, and then Houston. Baltimore would have the first wild card, and then Kansas City. And then Minnesota. But the Astros are firmly in first place right now, if we go by just what's happening today. And they're 5 games ahead of the Mariners, 11 games ahead of the Rangers. So in a good position right now to win the division. And if, in fact, they do win the division, you'll have to give a lot of credit to Joe Espada and Dana Brown, what they've done with this team. They've had a lot of injuries. They had a lot of pitching trouble because of injuries. And this team continues to find ways to win. And so I was saying earlier on Stan's show, if you're going to be critical of Joe Espada for how the team started, if you're going to assign some of that responsibility to him, then you have to give him credit for where the team is now. And where they are now is last night's win was ugly. But as I look at the standings, there's no asterisk by it. It just says they won. It just says that their record is 68 and 56 and that they have won 9 of the last 10 and 11 of the last 12. There's nothing that says, but that win against the Bo Sox on the 19th of August was ugly. Like no one cares. So it was a win nonetheless. They're back at it tonight. They will play the Red Sox again at Minute Maid Stadium. And then they play an afternoon game tomorrow before heading on the road. So we are getting close. This season is winding down. Still quite a bit of time left. So, yeah, it's exciting. And to think about it, guys, if the Houston Astros are able to pull off another division title, that's pretty special, right? They've been to 7 straight ALCS to the American League Championship Series 7 times. And if they win this division, and if they get back to the ALCS, obviously that's 8 times. The goal is to get all the way there and to win a championship, to win another World Series. But where they are right now is headed in the right direction. Hopefully they get Justin Verlander back soon. And, that some of the young guys are coming through and playing well. So we'll see. But I wanted to start with the Astros. I'll probably circle back to the Astros. We'll talk about the Texans because they are coming close. This time next week, Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans and the staff over there will have to decide Who will be on this 53-man roster? We will find that out next week, next Tuesday afternoon. There's one more preseason game. It will be Saturday against the Los Angeles Rams. But probably the thing to be most curious about is the joint practice workout, which will be Thursday over at the Texans Training Center on Kirby. Don't expect to see really any starters on Saturday playing in that game. This is what we kind of call like the special teams game, where they get a chance to see if there's some players that Frank Ross can then come back later, their special teams coordinator, and say, okay, I really need this guy. This is how I grade these guys, these players for special teams, and then those players, where they have the other roles. So this weekend it'll be interesting. But the real, I don't want to say the real competition to somehow infer that Saturday's game won't be competitive. But really the thing that I'm excited about watching is Thursday's joint practice with the Los Angeles Rams, because you will see more of the ones going against the ones, and it'll be a good indication, as it's the last time they get in that kind of work before the regular season. Next Tuesday, they will cut the roster down to 53 and then make whatever moves to put their practice squad together, and the whole who they cut, who they claim, all of those things start moving those pieces and see what actually happens. And then we are a couple weeks, less than 2 weeks away from the start of the regular season. The Houston Texans open the regular season on the road against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. It is a division game. They are division rivals. They off the bat, they hit it right. It's the game they want to win. They want to win them all, but that is definitely one you want to win, a game inside your division before coming back for their home opener the second week and playing host to Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, and also Jonathan Owens of the Chicago Bears, for a Sunday night football game, a primetime game on NBC. All that's happening. So let you hear from a couple of players before DJ joins us. Yesterday, speaking of DJ, he presented Head Coach DeMeco Ryans with an award for the Pro Football Writers Association Coach of the Year Award for 2023. And here is DJ Bien-Aimie on behalf of the Pro Football Writers Association, and here's what he said.
Being the head coach of the year for the PFWA award, I want to hand this to you. The way things looked before you got here, it didn't look great, but you quickly turned things around. So we want to credit you for being able to turn the Houston Texans around. Hopefully, you continue on the trajectory and get to cover all of it.
Thank you. It means a lot. This for the players. Right? It's not me. You get the right men helping you out. That's what this award is all about. It's not just about me as the head coach. It's about my staff and all of the great players that helped us accomplish a successful 2023 year. Now on to 2024. Let's make it even better.
That is DJ Bien-Aimie and Head Coach DeMeco Ryans. So I wanted to let you hear from a couple players. We'll talk about this when DJ joins us, about how John Metchie Jr. is looking, if the performance he had on Saturday in that preseason win over the Giants, and in Metchie's performance, if he thinks that's enough to solidify his spot on the team. I think Metchie's on the team. I think he's in, but we'll hear from DJ and see what he thinks. Here is John Metchie after the game, really just talking about his progress.
You feel your groove out there. Yeah, your confidence doesn't waver because you know it's all about timing and space and opportunity. And just like a receiver, like even if you have a drop, like we've caught so many footballs in our life, that doesn't really like break us. Like you're gonna have some drops in your life, right? Your confidence stays the same. But a day like today, it's just it just shows that like you keep working, it'll show itself in due time.
So John Metchie III, who of course this will be his first season coming in healthy and hopefully having, being a part of this roster, having a full healthy season. He was injured when he came from college, right? And then unfortunately he got cancer, he had leukemia. So he missed that season. recovered, got his body back, and was back with the team last year. But it takes a minute. I mean, cancer is a really big, ugly thing to have to deal with and get over. And so he had a full off season of being healthy. We heard CJ and some of the guys, how the receivers and CJ would get together in the off season in the spring to work out. And they talked about how great he looked, how good John Metchie was doing, how just amazing he looked. Throughout camp, we've seen Metchie, we've seen him have moments. We wonder, like, how's it going? But remember, he's been away from football at this level. He said that, I say at this level, he's been in the NFL, but where his body felt like his body again, right? He said, so once you go through, you're finished with the treatments and, all of those things with cancer, your body's still not quite back to what feels normal to you, especially if you're talking about competing and doing something where a healthy body is super important. So he talked about that. And, he's been a guy that everybody pulls for. I mean, they really, really adore him on this team, from CJ, the staff, the players, defensive players, other receivers. So on Saturday, he caught a touchdown, which will be it's preseason, but his first touchdown as an NFL player, as a Houston Texan. And you could just see the bench kind of pour. You saw Stephon Diggs meet him almost in the end zone. The guys that were just congratulating him because they genuinely want to see him do well. And here is Metchie talking about that touchdown and just the game overall.
That's the real thing. I don't really take too much time to soak it up because I'm still young and I'm still writing my story. And that's where my head is at. Just being where my feet is at. I don't really look at my story like I'm closing a book or something. I'm still writing it every day. So I try to be where my feet is at every day. And just continue building, trying to be one brick on top of another.
Again, Metchie's a guy that so many people on that team pull for. And here is Derek Stingley Jr., who is himself having a great camp, talking about John Metchie III.
The interception looked like you kind of ran his route for him.
Yeah, wide side of the field, ball in there for a little minute, so just figured I'd turn around, try to catch it.
I know we're other side of the ball when I ask this question. How pleased are you, how happy are you for John Metchie to have a day like this?
Oh man, we all seen it coming. Any given day he can do something like that, so I'm glad we got him on our team.
John Metchie is a man of few words, but what you need to know is that he's really good. And we had Nico Collins talking about his ball skills and his hands, because a lot of times, DBs don't have great hands, but Derek Stingley Jr. does. And so that was him talking about the interception he had on Saturday and then talking about John Metchie. Here is quarterback CJ Stroud talking about Metchie after the game on Saturday.
Praise in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Metchie has been working really hard. He's a great friend of mine, somebody who I have a lot of love for, and it's just exciting to see him and him able to put all his talents and things on display. So, I'm really excited for him. I think he's going to be a great addition to our team, and be able to have him fully healthy and feeling back in football shape. So, I'm very excited for him, and it's only just beginning for him.
So that was CJ Stroud. The starters played some, and Metchie was not in at the beginning of the game, but he has been getting some reps sometimes at practice. And you just see him. You can just tell how much all the guys on the team really respect him and really, really, really admire him. We are now at the time of the year where you talk about who's going to be on the roster, right? Who's going to make the final cut, right? Who makes it? Now there's some guys make it, right? You know that who your ones are and who those people are that make it. But one of the things we talked about yesterday is what's the mindset? Like Coach Ryans talked about it. What do you tell guys in terms of navigating this last week of the preseason and of trying to make the team? One of the players we'll talk about, and we'll talk about when DJ joins us, is Dameon Pierce. And you guys have heard me say a lot of times DP is in his head. And it shows. Like, if you're trying to do too much, or you're overwhelmed, or you're thinking too much, part of his problem last year, well, there are a number of problems. It was a new system. The offense was a challenge for him. He even talked about that. He felt completely out of sorts and out of place. He felt more comfortable after the off season he had and going through OTAs and mini camps, the beginning of camp. But as you've seen him recently, it looks a little more like he is, I don't know, thinking about it, right? He's thinking about it. So I asked DeMeco about the mindset and what he says to players as they try to make it through this final week and hopefully find themselves on the NFL roster.
At this point in the league, for all the guys, right, all the teams are in this same spot. And I tell our guys, you have to block out all of the noise, the external noise, and unfortunately the internal noise, where you may have some doubt, or you're thinking, oh, are they keeping this many guys? It's like you have to block all those things out, because you never know what can happen. And also at this point in time, if you don't make it, that doesn't mean that that's the end for you, right? There are a lot of guys who have had successful careers in this league who didn't get that first yes, right? It was a little journeyman to find their way, but they found their way, and they made a career in the league. So it's just about how guys attack it, right? Attacking it the right way, and just continuing to work on themselves and focus on getting better.
That was head coach DeMeco Ryans talking about mindset. And like you said, if you don't make it, it doesn't mean that you won't make it anywhere, but you just got to, focus on the things you can do, quiet the noise from outside, probably from us in the media, and sometimes some of the noise internally. And I wonder if that is those are some of the things that Dameon Pierce is going to have to do. There's mixed thoughts about it. Does he make this team or does he not? And we shall see. Nico Collins is another guy we got a chance to talk to yesterday. He talked about, his progress. He talked about Stingley. He talked about Metchie. And he also talked about, of course, CJ Stroud and just his ability to communicate.
Yeah, he always been that dude. He always been that vocal leader, since day one. I feel like that was kind of surprising, as a rookie quarterback to come in and lead the way he did. And, he came in with a chip on his shoulder, ready to lead. That's the way a quarterback should be when you first come in. But his communication, man, I feel like it's improving. Even though he's always been good, I feel like it's always improvement. I feel like there's always room for improvement for everybody. And I feel like, man, he's willing to get everybody better around him. That's his mission. And I feel like we all bought in and we all play for one another. So I feel like sky's the limit for him, man, and I'm excited to see it.
That is Nico Collins. Looks good. I mean, a lot of those guys do, in fact, look good and ready. And there are a couple of question marks, if you will, I think is fair to say. And let me see. I will tell you that our guest is working his way to join us. A little technical issue. Don't see him on this end. Nope, not yet. But see that he is trying to get in. He's going to try to rejoin. And there he is. Sometimes those print guys, I tell you. So listen, we have to welcome for the first time to the show, DJ. He is the beat writer for the Houston Texans, beat writer for ESPN.com. One of my favorite people on the beat, and I appreciate him being a part of the show. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's been, this appearance, it's been a long time in the making. I'm glad we can finally make it happen.
I'm glad we can make it happen. And what happens is the audience will be asking for you to come back. So I appreciate you being here. Hey, listen, so I want to jump into, I was doing a radio show earlier this morning and everybody wants to talk about who's going to be on the 53. But before we start talking about that, because we still have another week, we've got that all important practice with the Rams on Thursday. What has stood out to you? Who has stood out to you, or what position group has stood out to you most, either in a good way or bad, at this point through camp and in these games?
All right, so let's start with the good. Obviously, the receiver depth is pretty special. To the fact that we were at one point having a discussion was, just amongst the bees, was John Metchie going to make the team? Which, again, like that was unfathomable at one point. Granted, he wasn't playing up to his standard, but he's gotten better. And like obviously last week was, last game was quote unquote breakout performance for him. And I think he's only going to continue to ascend. So I think he'll be all right. But the fact that Xavier Hutchinson make it, and it's like Xavier Hutchinson is a really good player. Like he's made plays throughout camp. So I say the depth of the receiver room is quite fascinating. And I'll say, on the more like concerning side, the depth of the offensive line isn't where I would like it to be. Because let's say Laramie has to miss time or Titus has to miss time, their backups just aren't. They're not George Fant. Like last year,
Right.
The reason why losing Titus, you didn't feel it at all because you had George Fant, who was a legitimate NFL starting caliber tackle, who's I think is going to start with the Seahawks this year, and he started with the Jets before he got to Houston. So you losing that type of piece and then having Nick Brocker or Blake Fisher. Blake Fisher obviously is a rookie, but he's not ready yet. So if those guys had to miss time, that could give me some concern. I'm a little more concerned is I think the overall, losing to Nico Autry was concerning to me also because now a lot of the depth on the defensive line, because, this scheme, they want to have guys come in, waves. Losing a guy like that, along with, if let's say Will or Daniil has to miss time, now the defensive ends could be Will and Nick Barnett or Will and Jerry Hughes. And then on the tackle spot, it's going to be, Foley or Mario Edwards, where it could have been a Nico Autry. So I guess the depth of the defensive line isn't as good as it was last year. Because last year you had 4 guys that could really get after the pass rusher in Malik, Sheldon, Will, Bernard. You upgraded when you got Will over, not Will, but you got Daniil over Bernard. That's an upgrade. But you downgraded losing Malik and Sheldon, and you replaced them with Mario Edwards, Foley Fatakasi, and Tim Soto, all journeyman guys. I think who in the last, I actually looked it up the other day. If you combine all 3 of them, their sack total in the last 3 years, combine it all together, I think it's like 11.
Wow.
So, pressure from the interior from those that trio of guys just isn't going to be there because that's just not what they do. They're really good. They're good in the run game, though. So I guess like the depth of the defensive line, if injuries were to start to happen, would give me pause or concern.
So it's interesting you mentioned that when we were coming out of the beginning of free agency and camp, I thought defensive line depth to me was something I was intrigued by. I was curious. I wasn't concerned yet, but I was waiting to see what they would do. I will tell you another position that for me, I look at and I'm like, especially with the injury to Christian Harris, is linebacker.
Yeah.
That's a concern. I feel like even though there's some concern with the defensive line, they've got to do something heading into the season. A couple of things we know that there's no defensive tackle anywhere, right?
Right.
He's not going to find anybody has a defensive tackle that can come in and really play. Find somebody that can fill in some spots. But I feel like that linebacker position, because if heaven forbid, if anything happens to Azeez, they'll be calling you.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that's a great point. I think because, behind Azeez and Harris is obviously out with a calf injury right now. It's a lot of journeyman guys or young guys that haven't proven much. And the linebacker spot, especially in today's NFL, teams want to attack down the spine of a defense. That's what they want to attack. So that attacking the safeties, linebackers, players of that nature, and trying to get the ball into those areas. So, a lot of offensive coordinators, they like to mess with the linebackers and safeties' eyes, like a play action game, motions, all things of that nature to get their eyes off where it needs to be. And if you don't have guys that are really sound and have good, really, really high IQ, it can get really bad where you can give a lot of explosive down the middle of the field. So, yeah, I agree with you in terms of the depth, right? Because you're already down Harris. We'll see when he gets back. But, with soft body tissue injuries, you don't really know where those can lead. And then, if anything happens to disease, God forbid, now you're at a situation where you could be starting Henry To'oTo'o and Jake Hansen.
Wow. I know another position people talked about on defense was the secondary. I will say that I'm probably not as concerned about the secondary. I know that they're not names. People wanted the Texans to go out and, and get Justin Simmons and make some other moves. But they may be okay with the
Mhm.
secondary. I think up front is probably more the issue.
Yeah, I agree. And again, this game is more built up back to front, and I mean front to back anyway. But again, like Jalen Peaches looked good in camp. He looks rejuvenated in the nickel spot. You have Jimmy Ward who looks healthy. You know,
Yeah.
last year was more about health for him. Kamari has played well as a rookie, and then obviously Derek Stingley looks like he's taking that step to ascend into like the top 5-3 range of cornerbacks. And I think they have all the pieces that they need to be a good secondary. So yeah, I'm not concerned about them that much either.
Do you think the running game will be? I mean, obviously Joe Mixon, we know what he can do. The offensive line, we expect it. If again, depth, if they're healthy, that hopefully Titus stays healthy. Laramie will be back, but the run game is not really where Laramie shines.
Yeah.
Will be better this year. And your thoughts about what you've seen from Dameon Pierce to this point?
I would say when it comes to the running game, I'm not that optimistic about it. I think that they've showed us who they are for the past like year and some change. There's
Yeah.
no reason to think that like it's gonna just all of a sudden get better now. Like at first it was okay. Maybe they just got a really good defensive line at practice. That's why they can't run the ball. Then you go against the Steelers. Oh, they still can't run the ball. Then against the Giants. Oh, they still can't run the ball. So it just seems like that's just who they are, right? They're not going to be a very good running team, no matter necessarily who they put back there in terms of being efficient. Because even if you put Joe Mixon back there, I'm not necessarily sure because we haven't seen much of Joe Mixon like throughout camp
Right.
like at all. Like we've
Right.
probably seen like what 2-3 practices
Yeah.
of him in pads. So like I can't then say, oh, once he gets in there, it's gonna completely turn around. Yeah, I mean, based off what we've seen with the starting offensive line, yes, Dameon Pierce's vision is not good. It's not where it needs to be. But there's also a lot of times where there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go.
You know, so it's like, all right, no matter who you put back there, they might be able to make something out of nothing better than Dameon can, but you can't live in that world where you have to consistently make something out of nothing. So I'm pretty, you know, I've accepted what they're probably going to be, which is a below average rushing attack.
Yeah, I thought that too. That I've seen nothing that makes me think it's different. It's not a singular issue. It's not just about the running back, but they just don't seem to make any space up front. And I don't know if it's their scheme,
right,
their talent. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't have super high expectations for that. They will be a passer, more pass heavy game. Offense.
Right.
And they have weapons for that. I'm talking with DJ Bien-Aimie from ESPN.com. And so, DJ, since this is your first time joining us, I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about how you got to here, like your journey in the business, where you started. I know you're from Miami. That's okay.
Yes.
You know you're a Dolphins fan. That's fine too.
Yeah. So I would say, where did it start? So when I first went to college, I was playing football, ran a little bit of track. I was in junior college, so I bounced around from Arkansas to North Dakota to Cali. Within like a 2.5 year span, I guess you could say 3. I went to college in May or June of 2013, and I graduated in 2016. So yeah, you can say 3 years. And after I was done with JUCO, I went to University of Louisville. I ran track there, and I graduated in 2018. And I started covering Louisville sports for like a local paper, not paper, but a local blog. I think it was Card Connect, something like that. It was like a blog though. It doesn't exist anymore. So I was, and I was doing some radio stuff. And then I put together a lot of my clips, and I applied to grad school at the University of Columbia in New York. So I went there in 2019. That's when I learned how to be a journalist, learn how to report, learn how to write journalistically, because I was, my biggest struggle was taking out my opinion. Because while I'm on the blog, everything was opinionated. So, just actually just reporting what's happening, the facts, et cetera, et cetera. And understand what's news, what isn't news. So that was a little bit of transition. I graduated in 2020. It was a 1-year program during COVID. So COVID kind of slowed things down in terms of the job market, but I was able to find a job. I I got offered in October to go to St. Augustine, Florida, which is like an hour south from Jacksonville, to cover high school sports in the St. Johns County area in Florida. And but I didn't start officially until January. But I moved there in November because I want to get out of my parents' house. You know, I
Thought you
because
was grown. I get it. I
yeah,
get it.
yeah. Like, at that point I had, been out of my parents' house since 2013, going back in 2020 for that amount of time was, like I appreciated them, but I want to get back out on my own. And I moved in November before I even officially started, and I was working at I was freelancing for the paper I was going to work for eventually. So I started, covering some high school sports in the area, writing some features, things of that nature. And I officially started in January. So, but nothing changed. And then I broke a pretty big story about regarding like a Black Lives Matter issue in the area about a girl that wanted to wear a Black Lives Matter T-shirt at basketball games, but they wouldn't. Her athletic director eventually told her she couldn't wear it. Threatened to forfeit the game. He denied it on record, but everybody off record said that he did say that. Um, that story kind of gained some buzz. The athletic director had to resign, and well, that was after I left, but he resigned shortly after I left. I know after that story came out, I got an offer to go cover the Jets for New York Daily News in 2021. And I was covering them for approximately, I started in March, and I got the job to come to ESPN officially in July of 2022. So I was there for roughly I guess my math is correct, 14 months. So I covered the first year with Saleh, the first year with Zach. Me just covering, it's funny because there's so much of what the Texans do now that the Jets try to do. There's so much overlap, right? Like Saleh, they drafted Saleh and company. They drafted a quarterback number 2 overall. The Texans and company drafted quarterback number 2 overall. They both hired a defensive coordinator from San Francisco. They both drafted a corner in the top 4 that tries to kind of man their defense. They both have a Alabama defensive line rusher. There's just a decent amount that laps over and things of that nature. And the only thing is, they hit on the quarterback. The other team, the Jets, didn't. But that 1 year allowed me to really understand. Take my my journalistic ability to the next level. And it's why I understand so much about DeMeco's scheme and the offense, because I literally covered it
Right, with
verbatim.
Saleh. Right.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing. I could text Saleh right now asking questions about this look or that look, and he'll be able to explain it to me because he taught DeMeco not everything he knows, but he taught DeMeco this scheme. So, and same with Bobby Slowick. I could text Mike LaFleur, the Rams offensive coordinator, and get just the intricacies of this offense because he worked directly with Bobby Slowick, and they have a lot of things in common. Actually, they're best friends apparently. So, it's this having covered them helped me cover DeMeco and cover Bobby Slowick and things of that nature. So that's how I end up in this point. So I'm going on to my 3rd season with covering the Texans, my 2nd full year. No, I just crossed the 2-year mark of being at ESPN. So getting ready to go through year 3. And
So let me ask you this, because I always, when we talk and have different guests on, different people in the industry have different roles. And so when I talk about what a beat writer does, all you do is football, and in particular, what you do is Houston Texans. What's your typical week like in terms of what's expected of you and what you do? And do you like the work of being a beat writer?
So when I was covering the Jets, my daily, because it's a lot different now, and ESPN, they technically wouldn't I'm on the Texans beat, but I write for a national audience, so I'll explain the differences. So when I was a beat reporter for the Jets, I had the newspaper. I had to write. So okay, I'll take you through Sunday through Sunday. So Sunday, cover the game story, file at the deadline, at the buzzer, flush it out, then write a notebook afterwards. So that'd be 2 stories that day. Then Monday, have the main story of the day, whatever it was, and then a notebook to go along with that. So probably some takeaways, more in-depth takeaways from the game. Tuesday I was usually off, but I was still working on stuff, and I had to
Yeah.
write something for Wednesday, which whatever the news of the day was. Um, and then Thursday something similar, and then Friday I had to write what the news of the day was, along with 3 keys for victory for the Jets and a Sunday preview. So even though I would be off on Tuesday, I would still be writing and working on the stuff ahead of time because I try to stay ahead as much as possible since I had so much work. There's sometimes like I remember like I get Marcel Louis Jacques and Safid Dean. Safid's at USA Today and Marcel's at ESPN. They those two live in South Florida. They make fun of me to this day because there's one time we all went out and I was writing my 3 keys while we was at a bar at like 1 a.m. because I had because I knew I wasn't gonna wake up early. So I was like, let me try to knock this out now. So that's what my day to day was in season. So with the Texans now, I have like 30, like I'll have things for like the big stuff where like it'd be like 32 for 32 is what we call it, or to ask us a question. It could be for like a ranking, it could be for like fantasy, but whatever it is, it'll be multiple throughout the week, but it's like less than 100 words. Write those in, whatever is newsworthy for a national audience, pitch that to my news desk. So that's random. It can just depend on whatever is said at the podium.
Mhm.
Like that, I have no control over that. Like with this regime, they don't necessarily give us many headlines.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so I don't usually have to write that many newsers. But injuries, signings, I'll pitch that, and then stories. I write like a blog for the week. So it just depends what it is. And me and my editors try to stay ahead on that. So I'm always working a week ahead for the most part. It's very rarely now where I'm working the week of. There's been a couple of times where I've had to like write something where it was going to get published that week. But usually I try to stay ahead a week ahead. So I can focus on my bigger stories. Like I have a story that's probably gonna come out next week, but I'm working on it now and I'm gonna turn it in sometime this week so it can be ready for next week. Then work on something I have for the week after the Texans and Colts play week 1. So we try to stay ahead on a lot of stuff. So like I really don't focus on a lot of like the minutia and like the small minute stuff that a lot of people don't really care. Like a lot of like people naturally don't care for. Like if the backup left the third string left tackle gets hurt, I'm not even I might not even know who that brother name is,
Right.
So
Right.
so I
Right.
mean it's a different role. So like I'm there every day, but I have to operate from a national mindset of like what people outside of Houston care about, what would somebody in Iowa care about, or what somebody in California care about regarding the Texans, right? So it's usually quarterbacks, fantasy purposes, maybe a star defensive player or a star running back, which falls back into fantasy purposes. So um, you'll rarely ever catch me writing about the offensive line. The last I wrote about the offensive line for a story was when they dished out all that money to Shaq, LT, and Titus before camp last offseason. Haven't written about them since. And
Mm.
like and I could say maybe even with the defensive line. Because I haven't written any features on Will specifically. Granted, because Caesar takes up so much oxygen, I can't get to Will.
Right.
But if Will was the number 3 overall pick and was a wide receiver, then like it'd be different. So yeah, so it's just a different role, Like they're very much, they won't admit this, but they're very much click based,
Right.
where they want like now they're not like tabloidish, but they want us to write stories that people are going to read.
Talking with DJ Bien-Aimie of ESPN.com, and he writes about football, and he's here in Houston, so he covers the Houston Texans. I wanted to have you share that because I'm always trying to help people understand the different roles, the different people work they see, and why people do or don't cover something a certain way, right?
Right.
And so I think it's just really helpful. So thank you for that. So now you got to tell us about your dog. We are a dog-friendly show. Who is this?
This is Evie. I got him in March.
Hey, Evie.
I just actually got a text from Marcel. You know what they say? If you get a text, if you talk about somebody and then they call you or text you, they're gonna live a long time. So I'm gonna text them that. But
Okay.
yeah, so I got Evie in March. I got him at 4 months. I got him off Craigslist. It was this younger black lady. I guess she just didn't have enough. She didn't have enough time to take care of him, so she says. So I got him, and he can't leave my side, unfortunately. So
That's
so
what they're good about. And I never thought about looking on Craigslist for a dog.
yeah, so I got him for like, so these type of dogs, like, if you get them at 10
Smart breeder.
weeks,
Yeah.
they go for like $3,000. So I got him at like, I want to say like 12, 14 weeks or something like that, or maybe 15. I got him
Mhm.
for like, she was offering first it was 500, but the way it was set up, like I was leaving. So I think we met like late February, but I was leaving to go to South Florida because my girlfriend, her mom was having surgery. She was sick, so she was having surgery. So I was going down there to meet up with, we were all meeting up with her to take care of her. So I was going back to DC. My girl lives in DC, for our 1 year anniversary, and so I couldn't take him yet. So I just asked her like, hey, like if you hold a dog for me, I'll throw an extra 150. So all right, fine. I'm like, all right. So I got him on March 7th, and we've been locked in ever since. Since I've gotten this little rascal.
Well, listen, you have given me some thoughts. I'm going to check Craigslist. I lost my dog in 23, and so and they are super expensive. So I'm going to go to Craigslist because I never knew that was a thing.
Yeah, you just gotta like vet it. Obviously you got to really really vet it. Make sure they have their shots. Obviously, you would know that you got to grab all that. Obviously, sorry for your loss again.
Thanks.
But yeah, like I vetted it. I made sure for me. I'm very particular. Like if they don't got an iPhone, I'm not. I am. I ain't texting them because it's easier to find fake numbers with an Android than it is with an iPhone.
See,
So
I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So like for me, I always if it's not an iPhone, if I'm not texting an iPhone, I'm cool. Because anytime I've been close to being scammed, or I probably have, or I haven't. I don't know. It's always been with a non-iPhone, or if they can't text you off a regular number and it's a like Yahoo number or a iCloud whatever, then like nah,
Right.
I'm cool. I have to be able to call, FaceTime, see the dog, et cetera, et cetera. If I can do that, then it's all
You'll
good.
know
And
it's
then
legitimate. Yeah.
right, and we met up at a coffee shop or like a breakfast-ish spot, and I met him for the first time, and he was all over me. It's funny because like now if we go outside, he doesn't necessarily want to jump on anybody. Well, he will jump people here and there, but if we're sitting and someone comes by him, he's gonna like
Be
get on the
cool.
defense mode. Get on the defense mode. So it's
Ah.
kind of interesting in that
Is he
aspect.
a golden doodle or
Yeah, he's a medium golden doodle.
okay?
Yeah,
Awesome. All right, I know I digressed a bit, but that's what we do here on this show. We have real
that's okay.
conversation. We have
That's
real
okay.
conversations. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you this. Yesterday, and I'm going to play this, and then you can tell me. We'll talk about it on the other side. I clipped this a little moment that we had or you had with DeMeco.
Being the head coach of the year for the PFWA award, I want to hand this to you. The way things looked before you got here, it didn't look great, but you quickly turned things around. So we want to credit you for being able to turn the Texans around. Hopefully, you continue on the trajectory and get to cover all of it.
Thank you. It means a lot. This is for the players. Right? It's not me. You get the right men helping you out. That's what this award is all about. It's not just about me as a head coach. It's about my staff and all of the great players that helped us accomplish a successful 2023 year. Now on to 2024. Let's make it even better.
So that was yesterday. The Pro Football Writers Association Award from 2023. How cool was that for you to be able to do that with DeMeco? And I know there are many of us that thought maybe he should have been the coach of the year or was awarded by the AP, but I digress.
Yeah.
We have no control over that.
Right. Yeah. Houston, for whatever reason, they don't get the media love from a national standpoint. But I would say, no, that was cool, man. Like, it was cool to do that. I knew it was somewhat of a medium deal when like they told me to dress up ish a little bit. I was like, all right, and presented that like that's the memory I always have, like as a president of the Houston chapter, presenting a head coach with an award. Now everybody gets to do that. So that was cool. Like I know I have to do two more. I have to do one with CJ, and because CJ got the good guy award, and then Metchie got I think the resilient guy award.
Brazilian
So
guy. Yeah.
so I have to do two more. So I enjoyed it. I enjoy those type of things because it's professional-ish, and it is a memory you can always remember. So I'm glad that we could all share that moment together.
Yeah, it's super cool. All right, before I let you go, DJ, and I know that I kept you longer than I said, so
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So that you'll come back again. But give me your thoughts. And I always hate to have these conversations, this early because we don't know what the final roster is yet. But we're getting close. We got a pretty good idea.
Mm-hmm.
How good can this Texans team be this year?
Yeah, I think on paper, if they're healthy, they could reach the AFC Championship game. They would need some things to break their way. Obviously, health is a big one because obviously the injuries happened, and because this team is top heavy, right? Like we look at Stephon, Nico, Tank, CJ, Laramie, Titus Shack, Daniil, Sting, and after Aziz, and after that, kind of like tails off a decent amount. With there's a bunch of questions, so like that, obviously, like that top is pretty good. But if injuries happen, things can get a little tricky. But I do think they're a good enough team to make a run, just based on their top end talent. They have CJ, who CJ looks like he's going to continue to ascend. They just need their O-line to stay healthy so they can keep him upright, and he doesn't have to consistently operate from a quote-unquote muddy pocket.
Right.
So if they can get the run game going, then that would for sure. If they can get the run game going, then I'll feel really confident they can make an AFC Championship run. Because you don't want to put it all on a 23-year-old's shoulder, right? In his second year, you don't put all of it on him. So they still have some questions that they have to iron out, but I think their ceiling for sure is the AFC Championship game.
Well, we will see. We'll know soon enough. Of course, I'm excited about the practice with the Rams on Thursday, probably more so than the game on Saturday.
Same.
I imagine, I'd say this Saturday's game is what we kind of call a special teams game, right? Where Frank gets to kind of look and, see and then give his evaluations afterwards. But, it's not going to be you won't see any of the ones. And you're going to just see the guys, maybe some bubble guys to see what they do. But the Rams practice could be interesting.
Yes. And now I'm really looking forward to it too. Like that's going to be really a lot of fun.
All right. Well, DJ Bien-Aimie, do not be a stranger. Again, thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. I will see you at practice tomorrow, my friend. And Evie, this is for you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, DJ. All right, everybody, that was DJ Bien-Aimie with ESPN.com. And I like for you to get to know people that come on the show and just so you see that when you see someone's work, if you're just watching it in a small space, like on Twitter or on social media, you get a sense of why people cover things the way that they do, right? Because of who their audience is and what those expectations are. DJ is cool to work with. We've got a pretty good group of people on this Houston Texans beat, people that cover the team regularly, and we all have different roles. And, I'm not a beat reporter. I have a show, I do some writing for other publications, and I don't do the same kind of stories that the beat guy may do, right? I'm not really breaking stories, not that I never have, but that's not really my niche. So thank you, DJ Bien-Aimie, for joining us today on Chalk Talk, and congratulations again to Head Coach DeMeco Ryans for being the Coach of the Year for 2023, as voted on by the Pro Football Writers Association. There's chapters in every city where there's an NFL team, and DJ is the president of the local chapter. So that is going to do it for me today. There's a couple things I want to make sure I remind you of before we get out of here, and that is if you are in the state of Texas, you have until October 7th to be registered to vote in this fall election. I never tell you who to vote for, but I am always encouraging you to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. And if you are registered, and especially if you live in our great state of Texas or really in any of the states across the country, Double check to make sure you're registered. In fact, you could register again. There's no penalty for registering more than once, because here's something that's happening, and I want to make sure that people are aware of it. They're purging in some states people off the rolls. Maybe you missed voting in election. If you only vote in presidential elections, they may say, oh, you missed a local election. Maybe there was an election in your city or in your state for the railroad commission, and you missed that election. That could be a reason that state says, oh, you didn't vote in X amount of elections, and they purge you off the roll. So how do we avoid that? Just check to make sure that you're registered. Get registered, make sure that you know the policies and that you know the people so that you can vote your values, what matters to you and to your family. You know how to figure that out. And the other thing is, I've told you about the cups. These are the 40-ounce tumblers, the bling cups for football. I'm taking some pre-orders now. So whatever platform you're seeing this on, you can send me a message or you can email me, kim@kimydavis.com. I'm going to put it in the chat just in case. kim@kimydavis.com. I am taking pre-orders now, and I'm going to... if you're interested in one of these cups, let me know. Send me an email. And I'm actually going to, I found some that have the basketball background. So if you're interested in basketball or baseball, they even have soccer, let me know. Send me a message. The email is in the chat. You can send me an email, kim@kimydavis.com, or you can send me an instant message. You can direct message or DM me on whatever platform you are watching today's show. So with that, we are out of time. Remember, get registered to vote. If you think you're registered, double check to make sure you haven't been purged from a role. And if you are registered and all is good, then I'm going to say to you, have somebody else, help somebody else get registered. All right. That's going to do it for today. Thank you, guys. I will see you next week on Chalk Talk. I believe we'll be on Tuesday as we wrap up camp because there's no practice on Tuesday. So I'll see you Tuesday at noon. Remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. Make it a great week.